There's something wrong with the world. But no one talks about it. If you've ever had this thought, maybe it's because you're no longer living only in the reality you've been taught. What if I told you that you are already accessing the fifth dimension, without even realizing it? This may sound crazy to some, but to you, it already makes a certain sense, right? Because there's something going on inside that no one explained to you. Your body reacts in a strange way, your intuition is too accurate, time seems confusing. What about coincidences? They are becoming routine. This is not luck, nor crisis. It's spiritual awakening knocking on your door, and it doesn't come with logic, it comes with feeling. You're realizing that there is something bigger. And you may have noticed that living automatically simply can't do it anymore. But calm down, it's not the end of the world, it's the beginning of a new one. A reality where the invisible guides, and the impossible becomes natural. Vibrational energy is changing. Expanded consciousness has arrived. And who feels? You already know. Now, if throughout this reading you recognize the signs, tell me in the comments. Write, waking up, or comment on the number 5 if you also feel that you are already in this silent but powerful transition. Have you noticed how, sometimes, time seems to slip through your fingers like fine sand, and at others, it drags like a rainy Monday? It's not just impression, no. When the energetic frequency changes and the expanded consciousness begins to awaken, the perception of time enters a process of inner transformation. And no, this has nothing to do with broken watches. It is that, when it comes into contact with the fifth dimension, linear time loses strength, the now becomes king, and the future, only a reflection of the vibrational choices of the present. Many people report feeling the days passing faster, as if 24 hours were no longer enough to do the job. This is one of the first spiritual symptoms of those who are immersing themselves in the new age. When vibrational energy rises, the sense of temporal acceleration emerges as an echo of this internal change. Do you know when you are so aligned with your life purpose that you don't even notice the time passing? That's that. This is synchronicity in action. The soul begins to be guided by the rhythm of feeling, and no longer by the ticking of logic. But it's not always a rush. There are days when time stretches, and 5 minutes feels like an eternity. This happens because the body is adapting to the new frequency, processing deep energetic downloads. At these times, feeling is knowing. And the universe sends subtle signals, an unusual tiredness, a numbness in the air, that feeling that something, invisible, is being reorganized. Trust me, it is just another layer of spiritual awakening being accessed. There are people who start to have a different relationship with appointments and schedules. That old anxiety about deadlines and clocks is losing space. What was once rigidity, now becomes flow. It is as if something inside whispered, "Calm down, everything is at the right time." And look, it is. The connection with the whole puts us in the rhythm of the soul, and no longer in the rhythm of the system. And here's a twist, try starting the day with 5 minutes of silence. Just you, your breath and your intuition. You will notice the difference. This new way of experiencing time also affects how we feel the cycles of life. What used to take years to change, now turns into weeks. The cures are faster, the closures clearer, and the beginnings, well, they come with a force that feels like magic. But it's not magic, it's awareness. It is the soul taking the reins, rearranging experiences based on a subtler, lighter, and more real energy. And little by little, without realizing it, the person begins to live in another rhythm. A compass in which the clock is the heart and the calendar, the intuition. It's not that time disappears, it just changes functions. It ceases to be a prison and becomes a mirror of our vibration. And that's when the signs of the universe start to become more evident, like that presentiment that is confirmed, or that coincidence that doesn't even seem so random. Who has never had that feeling of nothingness, a kind of inexplicable feeling that something was going to happen? And it happened. This is not madness, it is expansion of consciousness. As the vibrational energy rises, intuition begins to show up more frequently. And we are not talking about guesswork, but about that silent certainty, which springs from the chest and does not need logic to justify itself. The curious thing: the more you listen, the more she gets it right. And there is no mistake, feeling is knowing. The so-called coincidences are beginning to take on a new look. You think of someone, and they send you a message. You visualize a path, and opportunities line up like dominoes. It is the universe responding to your new energetic frequency, sending signals to show you that everything is connected. This is not chance, it is synchronicity, a spiritual GPS that guides you, even without a defined route on the map. The more a person connects with the spiritual dimension, the more they realize that the world around them responds to each micro-vibration within. A simple example. That decision that seemed risky, but that intuition screamed, "Go." And in the end, everything fell into place. There is no rational explanation that can account for this. It is as if the soul knows the way before the mind. And, truth be told, she really does. Spiritual awakening brings a kind of sensitivity that, at first, can even be frightening. The body shivers for no reason, the heart accelerates with omens, and the mind tries to rationalize what cannot be explained. But when a person surrenders, he realizes that intuition is not something mystical, it is a practical tool. It serves to make decisions, get out of bad situations, and even choose where to invest your energy. A good exercise. Before any choice, close your eyes and feel. Your body will respond. Some people report that they began to anticipate small everyday situations, knowing who is calling before the cell phone rings, avoiding a path that would have an unforeseen event, or even sensing emotions from others. This is expanded consciousness at work. The connection with the whole intensifies these intuitive downloads, and they are not the privilege of the enlightened few, they are available to everyone who opens up to feeling. And the most incredible thing is that the more you trust, the more your intuition is strengthened. It's like a muscle, if you exercise, you grow. And with it comes a constant sense of inner security, as if a part of you already knows everything it needs. This opens up space for new movements, including to cut ties that no longer vibrate with you. But it's a conversation for soon there. Suddenly, that childhood friend seems like an outsider. Those conversations that used to flow, now sound forced. This is not coldness, nor ingratitude. It is energetic realignment. As one enters the process of spiritual awakening, the energetic frequency adjusts, and some connections simply do not keep up with this new vibration. It's like trying to tune a radio station to a frequency that no longer exists. It doesn't catch on anymore. And that's okay. A lot of people feel guilty about this. He feels that he is becoming insensitive, that he should try harder. But it is not about effort, but about vibrational coherence. When there is inner transformation, the energy field expands, and the person begins to vibrate in a fifth dimension, where relationships based on lack, drama, or control no longer have space. What used to make sense, now only weighs. And the universe is giving signs, mismatches, silly fights, uncomfortable silence. It is common for old relationships to begin to dissolve naturally. The connection with the whole directs the person to new experiences, with people who resonate with their new vibrational energy. And no, it doesn't mean that old people are bad. It just means that the paths have forked. It is as if the soul said, gratitude for everything, but now is the time to move on. And following, in this case, is an act of self-love and mutual respect. A good exercise to deal with this process is observation without judgment. Ask yourself, does this person still elevate me or just consume me? The answer usually comes quickly, almost intuitively. And remember what we talked about before. To feel is to know. When the heart tightens, the body tires and the conversation cools down, it may just be the universe indicating that this cycle has ended. No need to fight. Just accept it. Honor what was, but keep going. And don't be surprised if, during this period, new people, who you just met, seem more intimate than friendships of years. This is synchronicity. The vibrational energy begins to attract encounters that have the function of guiding, teaching or mirroring. They are souls with whom you share purposes, healings, or just a similar frequency. They arrive out of nowhere, but they carry everything inside their eyes. And yes, it's real. And even with all this energetic cleansing in relationships, the most curious thing is that the person does not feel alone. On the contrary, he begins to perceive an inner presence that fills, consoles, and guides. It is as if an invisible force said, "You are on the right path." And when this presence takes hold, even nature begins to respond. And then, out of nowhere, the breeze touches her face and seems to carry a message. The song of a bird draws more attention than any cell phone notification. The tree you've always ignored on the corner now seems to be alive, vibrating. That's nature talking, and yes, it does. When expanded consciousness awakens, the natural elements cease to be just scenery and become masters. They transmit signals from the universe, each with its own vibration, capable of touching the soul directly. This new perception is not only poetic, it is profoundly practical. The wind that changes suddenly, the sun that appears at a specific moment, the insect that crosses your path, all of these can be read as synchronicity. The vibrational energy of these elements talks to yours, responding to emotions, intentions, and thoughts. An example. Are you distressed and suddenly it starts raining? Perhaps it is nature helping to clear the emotional field. Subtlety with healing power. Many people report feeling goosebumps when touching trees, as if something there is pulsing together. And it is. Trees are antennas of energy, connected to the whole, and highly sensitive to our energetic frequency. Touching a tree and taking a deep breath can be just as effective as a guided meditation. And it's not mysticism, it's energetic symbiosis. When you align with nature, it responds with presence and quiet wisdom. If there is something that helps a lot in this process, it is to walk barefoot on the ground, in the park, on the beach, wherever possible. The so-called grounding realigns the body with the natural frequency of the planet. This reduces anxiety, improves sleep, balances emotions. And do you know why? Because the earth vibrates in resonance with the fifth dimension. Being in contact with it is like recharging the batteries of the soul. Simple, accessible, and deeply effective. Nature also begins to become a mirror of inner transformation. A different sky can reflect an emotional state, and an animal that appears repeatedly can be a symbolic guide. It's as if life is all the time trying to talk, but only now have you learned to listen. And then, the butterflies become signs of rebirth, the waters bring emotional cleansing, the winds announce movement. Everything has language. Everything communicates. And the more you immerse yourself in this silent dialogue with nature, the more you realize that the body also begins to respond in a different way. Sensations intensify, symptoms appear for no apparent reason, and sleep. Sleep is no longer the same as it used to be. You wake up with a heavy body, as if you had run a marathon while sleeping. Sometimes he feels a strange pressure in his head, a ringing in his ears that comes and goes, or a fatigue that cannot be explained with coffee or rest. This is not illness, it is vibrational transition. The body is trying to keep up with the soul, which has already begun to tune into the energetic frequency of the fifth dimension. And like any system being updated, some bugs happen. These spiritual symptoms do not follow traditional medical patterns. They come and go, change intensity, appear out of nowhere. It is the physical trying to align with the subtle. Tinnitus, for example, can indicate that the sensory field is opening up to pick up dimensions beyond matter. Constant exhaustion, on the other hand, can be a sign of a deep process of energetic cleansing, and look how cleaning requires energy, see. Internally, you are releasing layers of beliefs, traumas, and blockages. It is also common to have a greater sensitivity to sleep. Some people sleep too much, others can barely rest. Dreams become more vivid, almost like visions, and sometimes bring clear, symbolic, or even premonitory messages. It is the subconscious communicating more directly, without filters. If this is happening to you, writing down dreams when you wake up can be a powerful tool to understand the phase you are going through. Many answers come there. The body also begins to reject foods and environments that do not match the new vibration. That food you loved starts to weigh you down. Certain places, which were once normal, now cause discomfort. And that's great. It means that your vibrational field is more selective, cleaner, more conscious. Feel free to respect these signs. Swap industrialized food for something more alive. Reduce noise, increase contact with nature. The body is grateful, and so is the soul. It may seem strange, but even the rhythm of breathing changes. You find yourself sighing more, taking a deep breath for no reason. This is the body trying to self-regulate, seeking more oxygen to sustain the new energy load. It's important to follow this up with gentle practices like stretching, yoga, or simply lying on the floor and breathing deeply for 5 minutes. It's not about doing a lot, it's about feeling better. Remember, to feel is to know. And as the body adapts to this new reality, something begins to pulsate inside, a restlessness, a call, a desire to discover the reason for all this. And it doesn't take long for that question to come up that seems to echo in my chest: what is my true purpose in life? There comes a time when nothing more than what was normal satisfies. Routine feels empty, work no longer has the same glow, and even old dreams seem to belong to another version of you. This is the call, silent, but insistent, to live a life purpose more aligned with your essence. It's the expanded consciousness nudging you, telling you that the search is not for status, but for meaning. And look, that changes everything. This existential emptiness that arises, often confused with discouragement or crisis, is actually the soul clearing the stage for a new show. That old vibrational energy, based on having to be, no longer sticks. Now, the desire is to be to expand. And when the connection with the whole intensifies, the question stops being, what do I want to do with my life, and becomes, what did I come to contribute to the world? It's a subtle but revolutionary change. Many people at this stage begin to rethink choices. He changes careers, abandons relationships, adopts more conscious habits. And all this starts from an intuition that does not scream, but insists. It is as if an internal compass began to point to another north. And here's a practical tip: write down what you liked to do most as a child. Often, their purpose is hidden there, between games and dreams that time has stifled. This search for the greater purpose is also reflected in the way you consume, speak, listen, and even breathe. Everything becomes a more conscious choice. You ask yourself, does it raise my vibrational energy or drain me? And that simple question begins to guide your decisions surprisingly effectively. It is the wisdom of feeling, taking the place of automatic logic. A more intuitive, more authentic, more real path. And you don't have to wait for big revelations, okay? Sometimes its purpose lies in small gestures, listening attentively, sharing a word of healing, planting a seed, literally or metaphorically. Spiritual awakening does not require a stage or an audience. It happens in everyday life, in silence, when you choose to live according to your truth, even if it is still being polished. And in this movement of self-discovery, the first clear signs begin to emerge that something out of the ordinary is guiding you. Synchronicities multiply, answers come before questions, and everything begins to fall into place like pieces of a puzzle, invisible, but extremely real. You think of someone and the person appears. You're reflecting on a topic and you hear exactly that in a random video. He is lost in a doubt, and a sentence on a street sign seems to give the answer. It's no coincidence. It's synchronicity. When the soul begins to operate in the energetic frequency of the fifth dimension, the universe becomes an intelligent system that responds precisely to your every move. It's as if life speaks your language, and you begin to understand it. These synchronicities are like winks of the universe. They show that you are aligned, that the path that seemed uncertain is actually full of signs, only invisible to the rational eye. A number that repeats itself, a song that plays at the right time, an encounter that seemed impossible. These are all signals from the universe adjusting your spiritual GPS. And it does not fail. You just need to be there to notice. At first, these coincidences seem strange, even funny. But the more you pay attention, the more they happen. It's like tuning into a radio station, the clearer the frequency, the sharper the message. A good exercise is to write down every synchronicity you notice throughout the day. After a week, read the whole thing. You will be surprised at the number of answers that were already there, just waiting for your expanded consciousness to pick up. These synchronized encounters aren't just signals, they're bridges. They connect people, ideas, and opportunities that accelerate your inner transformation. Sometimes, all it takes is a look, a conversation, a sentence to change the course of something important. When you are open to the vibrational energy of the new age, these connections begin to come from all sides. And no, it's not magic. It's harmony. It is the field responding to its vibration exactly. And you know the most curious? Logic begins to lose ground in this process. You no longer need proof, justification, or assurance. You just feel like it's over there. Certainty does not come from the mind, it comes from the body, the heart, the soul. And that scares you at first. After all, we have been taught to trust only what is visible. But when you start living from the inside out, the invisible becomes what matters most. And it is at this point that everything begins to change. Feeling gains power. Decisions are no longer planned to the millimeter and are guided by a kind of internal compass, which points more precisely than any rational plan. You always thought you needed to think long and hard before deciding, making lists of pros and cons, consulting 1,000 opinions. But now, something has changed. The answers come before the questions. Certainties are born from the chest, not from the head. This is a clear sign of spiritual awakening. When expanded consciousness takes the wheel, logic becomes fleeting. And what really guides is intuition, that silent force that, despite being invisible, knows the way with impressive precision. It may seem risky at first. After all, we were programmed to seek security in data, facts, formulas. But the new era asks for something else, to feel. And to feel is to know. That decision that doesn't make sense rationally, but that relieves the chest. It's probably the right one. That opportunity that seems perfect on paper, but tightens the stomach. Better to let it go. Logic, here, no longer has the same force. It serves, yes, but it no longer rules. This does not mean abandoning reasoning. It means putting it at the service of the soul, not the other way around. A life guided by logic is efficient, but a life guided by intuition is expansive. Logic sees the next step. Intuition sees the entire ladder, even when it is invisible. And look how interesting, the more you trust feeling, the more things flow. Less effort, more result. Less control, more connection with the whole. Want a practical example? Choose projects, friendships, trips, or even a new book for what vibrates well, without having to justify it. Just because it resonates. Try. If something attracts you without explanation, go there and observe. If something drives you away for no reason, respect it. Spiritual wisdom moves in silence, and respecting it is one of the greatest acts of self-care you can practice in this expanding spiritual dimension. Over time, this new way of living becomes natural. The mind begins to surrender to the heart. And here comes a kind of peace that does not depend on anything external. You no longer need to understand everything. You just need to trust what you feel. And that, this is liberating. Because living guided by feeling is like walking with the universe hand in hand, even without knowing where it is taking you. And when this delivery really happens, something begins to reveal itself strongly. A feeling that, even without understanding, you are waking up from something very old. As if I were coming out of a long dream, and reality was, at last, beginning to appear. You wake up and feel like you've woken up from something bigger than a night's sleep. It is as if it were being reborn in small doses, every day. There is something new in the air, a different perception, a clarity that cannot be explained. That is the feeling of waking up. And it is not just a physical awakening, it is spiritual. The expanded consciousness illuminates areas of life that were previously dormant. And when that starts, there is no turning back. The world around you remains the same, traffic, bills, trivial conversations, but you feel like you've changed inside. It's as if a part of you is observing everything with different eyes. Things that were once automatic are now questioned. Old values lose meaning. And an almost uncontrollable desire arises to seek more, to understand more, or at least to feel something more real. This discomfort is precious. It is a sign that you are coming out of the collective illusion. Many people at this stage begin to feel that they no longer belong to the place where they are. It is like living in a body that still functions in the 3D world, but with the soul already floating in the 5th dimension. And this is not isolation, it is transition. The vibrational energy is changing in such a way that the old is no longer useful, and the new has not yet arrived. You are in an in-between, and this in-between is precisely the space of awakening. A fertile void where inner transformation begins to be structured. The most beautiful. You begin to realize that everything is connected. A thought here affects an event there. A feeling now reverberates in your body tomorrow. The spiritual dimension is present in everything. And this generates a kind of silent reverence for life. You start walking more slowly, breathing deeper, listening with more presence. Because he understands that each instant is a portal of expansion. And this gives a new flavor to existence. This awakening is not the same for everyone. There are those who cry more, those who are silent, those who laugh for no reason. Each soul has its rhythm. But everyone, without exception, feels that they are remembering something old, something they already knew but forgot. As if feeling is knowing was returning to center stage. There is no hurry. There is no finish line. There is only one living journey, which reveals itself as you surrender. And the more you allow yourself to feel this new reality, the more it gets stronger. Until the time comes when living in the 3rd dimension simply no longer makes sense. You start to notice that everything around you is different, or maybe you're the one who is finally seeing everything as it really is. The world keeps turning, but for those who have already woken up, it looks different. The same streets, the same people, the same daily life, everything seems to carry a different glow, a lighter density, a subtle energetic frequency that previously went unnoticed. This happens because a new reality is unfolding. It has always been there, only now you have the right eyes to see. And seeing, in this context, is a much deeper verb than just seeing. The spiritual dimension ceases to be belief and becomes experience. The separation between the I and the whole disappears, as if everything were connected by invisible threads of meaning. And it is. Those who access the fifth dimension begin to live by another logic, a logic where intuition guides, time flows differently, and life responds with surgical precision to each vibration emitted. The 3D world is still there, but it is no longer its only territory. This new look brings with it a silent responsibility, that of taking care of one's own energy. Because now you know that what you emit, attracts. That what he feels, manifests. That what thinks, shapes reality. The inner transformation becomes visible, palpable. You notice how their presence starts to affect the environment, the conversations, even the mood of the people around them. And that's not spiritual arrogance, it's awareness. It is to live with intention. Words gain more weight. The silence is too. You feel that you need to choose better what you consume, what you say, what you think. The connection with the whole no longer allows us to live on automatic. Everything becomes purposeful, even the moments of pause. And then a new beauty arises, a different peace, a joy that does not depend on external circumstances. It is a contentment that is born of feeling. And that, honestly, is priceless. And even with all this blooming inside you, there is still that slight strangeness. After all, how do you explain to others that you no longer live alone here? That your heart inhabits other dimensions, even with your feet on the ground? You try, but you realize that some things are not said, they are just felt. And those who feel it, understand. Those who are on this path also recognize the sparkle in their eyes, the different way of listening, the silence full of presence. And when you realize it, he realizes that this transition is not the end of anything. It's the beginning. The beginning of a journey where each step is guided by something greater, something that pulsates inside and outside of you. And that's where everything changes, because now you know, you're not alone. And it never was. You already noticed, right? All this that you have been feeling is not something in your head, it is a sign that your soul is asking for passage. You are awakening, expanding, going through invisible portals that change everything from within. Now, the question is, what are you going to do with that knowledge? Will you continue to live on autopilot, or will you take on this new version of yourself once and for all? Notice, how many signs from the universe have you ignored? How many times has your intuition screamed and you pretended not to hear? How many internal transformations have you begun? But did you break out of fear? This is not all happening by chance. If you have come this far, it is because your energetic frequency is ready. Ready to create, to feel, to manifest, not just a new world, but a new existence. The reality is that no one will come to save you. Awakening is individual. But it becomes collective when you decide to apply, live and share. So what can you change today? What is the first real step towards your fifth dimension? Which part of you needs to be listened to with the most courage? Tell me here in the comments, what moved you the most in this content? And if this video helped you in any way, subscribe to the channel, activate notifications, and stay here with me. We still have a lot to discover, together.